controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are A$AP Science here to make things make sense.
The male G-spot. It's been
the prostate.
The prostate.
Right?
Well, we're gonna get there for people who don't know. I think there's a lot of conversation around like female G-spots, but then there's been this elusive idea like maybe males also have a G-spot, meaning there's like a special part in their ass for females in the vagina that is like hyper stimulating, that can lead to really intense orgasms. And these ideas have both kind of been pervasive for a long time, I think, in sex culture. And some people being like, oh, if you hit the G-spot, it's like wild. And other people being like, I don't know if I have one. Is that a real thing? Are we making it up? Like, what is this?
But also just like understudied gay anal sex science, which is like not... Like a lot of people probably just don't even want to think about their G-spot being in their ass because they're just like, I don't even want to go there.
Fair, but more and more, as we know from this podcast, many straight men and women are down to play with their butts.
That's a good question is like male G-spot, why male? Do people who are born with vaginas also get, like they also have anal sex, so why does it feel good? Like,
we're going to get into that.
And when we say male, we like... When we talk about trans people and gender non-binary people, we'll specify because a lot of this research just says male and female, but it's just assuming people born with penises or prostates as opposed to people born without prostates.
Exactly. Yeah. So in most cases, if you were born with a prostate,
that's what we're talking about
the
with the
quote unquote male G-spot. That's like probably more like relevant to you. But I have some information on like female G-spots as well.
Yeah, I want to know that.
So maybe we can start there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so...
Ladies!
You know, obviously neither of us have experience with this, basically.
What? I do?
I mean, like, personal.
Oh,
I didn't mean, like...
Whoops.
Okay, wow.
I was really about to go off and be like, I love to finger girls. Okay.
Oh, my God, okay. Whoa, okay.
People are having a brat summer, I'm having a bi summer. Continue.
Okay, that's not true, by the way. Just so everyone listening knows that's not true.
It was 2 years ago.
Okay. And we're here. So obviously in females, like the G-spot is an erogenous zone that's in the vagina that has typically been said to be around 5 to 8 centimeters inside, or 2 to 3 inches up. So like picture like, I don't know, your index finger or something like that. Up the front anterior vaginal wall between the vaginal opening and the urethra, and is a sensitive area that may be part of the female prostate. It's interesting because later we will learn that the male G-spot is sometimes referred to as the P-spot because it often feels like homologous to the prostate. What I found interesting about my brief research on the female G-spot, because I know this is about males in this episode, it's actually not been proven. It's a thing that, like, there is no specific structure. Like, they have, like, different women experience pleasure in different ways.
Like, isn't it the clitoris?
Well, that, a lot of, obviously, women get a lot of pleasure from their clitoris. But I think they wanted to let people know that it's not necessarily this distinct thing, because a lot of women then are like, I don't have it. Am I sexually dysfunctional? I can't find it. I don't feel specific pleasure from it. In 2001, it was accepted that the female prostate can be another term for the Skene's gland.
Who's Skene? Better not be some man.
Well,
like S-K-E-N-E?
I'm sure we can assume
capital S. It's like some German man from 1901. It's like, change the name to like girl gland.
Yeah. Well, either way, you know how like often like the clitoris is homologous to the penis, and so the Skene's gland is homologous to the prostate. They just develop at different stages of like development, and so perhaps for women that is their G-spot, but I think it has, you know, there's no like quote unquote specific area that has been.
That's
quantified.
good to know, because I would also hate to like be walking around this earth and all these like other chicas being like, my G-spot, and then being like,
yeah, and
like, yeah, my G-spot too. Like that would suck. It's like, no, okay, it's not a proven thing.
Yeah, it is debated. Obviously, some people believe there's an area, and like you said, it may be an extension of the clitoris, is what some research suggests. But I think there's no like hard consensus around it.
Well, okay, that kind of brings us to the P-spot, aka prostate, which is a confusing thing. The P-spot, when we're talking about all this stuff, it makes me think about peeing. But when you said the P-spot, you meant the P relating to the word prostate.
Yeah,
which is complicated. Like
called
P
a
is
G-spot.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But the P-spot also sounds so pee-pee. So it's like, you mean my urethra? It's like, no, The P spot means the prostate.
yeah,
like it's
I
a
see.
very confusing term.
Yeah, we'll call it the male G spot.
We'll call it the prostate.
But the reason they call it the P spot is because it's linked to the
Yeah.
prostate.
So the prostate is the size and shape of a walnut when you're our age, but it does grow
When you're our age.
Well, no, it grows as you age.
Oh, like even
Yeah.
bigger.
Yes,
Oh, so
and that's
mine's
like
just a measly little walnut.
I mean, we are getting up there. It could be, a little bit bigger
Oh.
than a walnut.
Like
we could be
what?
getting to like whatever.
Mine's an apricot.
Yeah, I was like, what's a nut bigger than a walnut? It's a pretty big one.
Isn't that like the biggest one?
I mean, I'm sure like some
Cashew?
like a nut scientist could come down here and absolutely school us.
But a walnut with its casing.
With its
is pretty
casing,
big.
which you can picture. Whereas cashew with casing is harder to picture. But a walnut with
Unless you've
casing,
learned, like me, that cashews grow on apples, and you can picture the cashew nut on the top of an apple.
which
Or
is insane. It's a stem. It's like the stem part of an apple.
like it looks as though where
Yeah.
the stem would be. It's not a literal apple, but it's similar.
That is absolutely mind blowing, and we should do an episode on that in and of itself. But okay, the walnut, picture it with the shell on. That's the size of the prostate on average, and it is a small gland that helps to make semen.
Make semen.
Semen, yes. So the prostate, like, it's a complex like secretion that will all become a part of your ejaculate, and about like 30% of the fluid volume of your ejaculate will come from your prostate.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, that's what it's doing there.
Right.
And the fluid that is in your that your prostate creates and eventually gets shot out of your dick or, whatever, contains citric acid, which is kind of interesting to me. So yeah, that's very like
lemon.
very like drinking and like like an electrolyte drink or something. Zinc, which is like possibly the antibacterial part of the fluid. Like maybe that's like the purpose of the zinc. There's an enzyme called prostatic specific antigen that liquefies the coagulated semen after ejaculation. Like, when you come, this is so not safe for work. And then your cum like
slowly
goes
turns
from
to
like,
liquid.
this is actually repulsive.
Well,
I'm so sorry.
I'm sure
it
everyone
goes
has
from like
experience.
goopier to like liquid.
It's kind of like, when you play with that goop stuff where you
Yeah.
like squeeze it and it's hard, and if you leave it, it like kind of melts. Like not literally melts, but it
Yeah.
gets like liquidy.
It is.
That happens.
It is so weird. It's like, if
This
you
is sex education.
Yeah.
Greg. We don't have to be
if you
embarrassed.
masturbate or okay, you're right. If you I'm just gonna go off then. If you masturbate or happen to come with someone or alone, whatever, and then you just leave it like on your body and like decide to just like scroll Twitter instead, you will look down and eventually it's like water.
It's like dripped or down.
It's like,
yeah.
And it is an interesting sensation where you're like,
Yeah.
where did all that stuff go? Anyways, so your prostate created the enzyme that essentially like breaks down the coagulation of the semen after
Wow.
ejaculation. There's a lot of other
really
things
cool.
in there, including spermidine, which again could be antibacterial, but the spermidine is also what gives the semen its characteristic odor. How would one describe the smell of semen?
See, to me, it's always been like,
Papaya.
and I'm not saying mine. Papaya? Do you think?
The smell of papaya.
You
has
think?
cum vibes.
I guess a little.
Okay, sorry. What was yours?
Well, sometimes, like, not as strong as bleach, but sometimes to
What?
me it smells a little like that, or like dough or something. I don't
Okay,
know.
dough sounds right. Bleach makes me think I'm sick.
No, yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
not bleach, but there's like an element of bleach.
Yeah,
but bleach
Whoa,
is way more harsh.
whoa.
Obviously, like bleach would burn it up.
Dough is good.
Okay,
Even
like a
the
raw
taste
dough.
of raw dough is kind of coming. It is. That's a good one.
Okay.
Raw dough and papaya is where I'm gonna go. Mix some raw dough and papaya and make someone sniff
if you're
it.
desperate to.
I
yeah.
actually want to do that. We have both those things at home. Flour, butter, sugar. What's that song?
Waitress.
Okay. So that is like the function of the prostate.
And in terms of actual location, it is around 2 inches inside the butthole.
So that's why when you get to gay sex, now that's something we can talk about. Now that's something we have. There are like these ideas of like, oh, he's hitting my prostate. Like he's so big. It's so far in.
Yeah.
It's like, no, babe. It's like not that far in.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I'm sure I've been told this before, but I assumed as well that it was deeper than
I thought
2
it was like at
inches.
the back.
2
of
inches
your
is
ass.
not, is like you barely have to stick a finger in.
Yeah. So
Whereas,
it's like,
yeah, I think in my mind
Okay.
it was like, oh, you have to reach the prostate.
yeah. Which I think is very like, I get why that's like the fun game to be played, but it's not the accurate one. But we'll get into why that feels good later. But so when the prostate
Wait, why? What
discussed.
feels good? Getting
Yeah.
like deep?
Yeah. Well, the lot of information about the prostate is just about anal sex
Yes.
and its function. So there's the reproductive aspect of the prostate, which is like what we just said, the creation of the liquid in the semen and how that helps ejaculation, therefore making a species continue as humans because we're coming. That's the only way we keep going. And then there's the second function, which is called the recreational function, which is now what scientists are trying to discover if there is like an ecstasy of the orgasm involvement that could be part of the function of the prostate. But that's what we're going to talk about now.
Can you say this again? I was like listening, but only half, and I was thinking about something else I wanted to say. But then I'm like, restate that for me.
So scientists think that there are two functions to the prostate potentially. Okay. Function number one, reproductive, aka the creation of that 30% of your semen. Therefore, that makes you reproduce.
Yeah.
Function number two, they call recreational function, which is that maybe it has an involvement in the ecstasy of an orgasm.
Okay, got it. What I was going to say was it is so interesting that sex is so taboo. Is that yours?
What is that? Oh, it's not me. You have a
Whoa. Why is it echoing like that?
It's coming out of there because of Bluetooth.
Oh, so maybe you all heard my ring.
Oh, your phone's connected to that?
Yeah, anyway, let me go back. Sorry.
Whoa, don't know something inappropriate.
It's the dog's vet. I got to call them back after. So I was going to say it's so interesting that obviously sex is so quintessential to existence, and yet it's like so taboo and embarrassing for a lot of people to talk about. Like, we are literally all the result of sex and of orgasms and of cum shots and
okay, well, yeah, even you saying that,
like,
I'm like, what?
It's like you're saying whoa, but it's like everyone listening here is like the result.
Cum shots is just okay.
So it's interesting that like, why does that feel so weird? Like, why are we?
You should put that should be our merch. Just like on a
you're the result of a cum shot.
You're the result of a cum shot,
and that's educational.
Brat Summer. I feel like that is true. I think the idea of sex being so taboo is so fun to talk about, but it's just like wah, Christianity. Or like it's like always that. Like religion.
It's not just Christianity, but often religion.
But it's like, were the Romans and Greeks just like fucking all the time? Like, I don't actually know.
I don't know either. But
and like, were they just like openly like, you're a cum shot, you're the result of a cum shot? Like, was that like
that was actually the slogan of Rome?
Well, sex is just vulnerable. Like an orgasm is vulnerable. It's very like
intimate and private.
Like you're like losing control. But outside of religion, I'm like, why is it? Because there's so much like validation hierarchy that's created through sex. Like, do you want the sex from someone? Like, I'm trying to think like, why is it so
there's
taboo?
layers to it being pleasurable, but also related to. But it's interesting.
But it's an interesting question.
It's like for our species survival, you need food, you need shelter, you need sex. You need there's like a handful of things, and it's interesting. I guess we do have a complicated relationship to food, but not in the same kind of embarrassed way.
No.
And like, I don't know. I just find it interesting.
But also it is like all we
smarter.
talk about on this podcast is sex. So it's like,
it's not that taboo, like, but it's still weird to like acknowledge that like your parents had to have sex.
Well, there's diseases involved. I'm trying to think like what makes it taboo. Like you can get STIs. Like I'm just trying to be like, what is it? It is interesting.
Is there a scholar out there that could come and tell us? Like, are there cultures that just are have no shame in sex?
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean they have to have sex so much. Just
that. Like it's like the only culture is gay guys.
But even there's so much
shame. Are you kidding? Our middle name shame.
Okay, but coming back to this then. So we're talking about anal sex, and I know even for a lot of gay people, but many straight people, it can be so taboo. But we're learning, and that's normal. And to give yourself pleasure is interesting. I will say, despite my prostate being 2 inches in, and so is yours, I have not necessarily been brought a lot of pleasure from that.
Yeah, because you don't.
In the way that those studies were like, a lot of females also feel like, I don't know, I don't feel my G-spot. If something wrong with me, sometimes I'm like, why is it so pleasurable for some people? And I'm like, this mostly hurts me.
Okay, well, this like maybe brings me to research I was going to talk about later, but we could talk about now.
That I'm an anxious little freak and my butt's so tight because of it.
Whoa. Okay, you said it, not me. It's kind of it's not bearing the lead. It's going to, so like the idea of your prostate as this pleasure orgasm spot is like not necessarily true, in the sense that like
it's the opposite of bearing the lead.
Oh, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of
You're
bearing.
revealing
Yeah,
the
no,
answer.
that's what I mean. Like so this is one thing, which is like, it is actually all about people maybe are having better orgasms from anal play and prostate, these amazing prostate orgasms, because it's actually creating a sense of relaxation, and their nerves are firing in their brain, like through practice and through essentially exploring a whole different way of sex, as opposed to
There being a
touching this
literal
prostate.
button.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, I think you have less experience with the exploration of that. And therefore it's harder for you to get to that place. Whereas other people who are maybe bottoming all the time are like actually essentially
Can explore it more.
Yeah. And there's neuroplasticity in the brain is what they're saying. So they have created a way for their brain to experience pleasure through anal sex by doing it. They might have at the beginning had a lot of pain, but they got through it, and they've explored these new neurons in parts of their ass, literally. Whereas like you haven't.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That's probably
And,
like more the answer than you like not having a prostate.
Yeah, but I mean, the research does show that while anal sex is pleasurable for many people, there is still a subset of people who just don't actually find it pleasurable. So I think it's important to at least, and that may be because of stress, anxiety, like taboo, like your mental like thoughts on it,
Also,
or
like
your
being
subconscious
Catholic.
thoughts on it. Yeah,
It's like,
it could be those things, or it could also be your anatomy and your biology and your genetics that play a role in there being pleasure centers different for you. You know? So I think it's important to have grace with yourself, as I had with myself. Still always willing to explore, but I think it's like it takes me longer to feel comfortable with that.
yeah, and like some people are just more sexual and like probably spend their spare time like playing with their ass. You know what I mean? Like,
And are maybe more pain tolerant. Like
Yeah.
I am somebody who has a very low pain tolerance. Like even I remember hearing that like stretching in general, your muscles, like when you get better at stretching, it's not actually that your muscles are looser, it's that your brain learns to tolerate the pain better. So you can actually tolerate more pain when you can stretch further. And it's like the successive movements further and further allow your brain to adjust to that, but you're still receiving those same inputs. And
yeah,
so,
that's what I meant. Like maybe people have the same pain tolerance as you, but they're spending time stretching
pushed
their
through
like
it.
hole,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to ejaculation, which like relates a little bit to your prostate, is that like it's initiated by contractions of various like accessory organs, beginning in the testes, then the epididymis, flowing through the vas deferens, and like also the seminal vessels that goes like contract, contract, contract. Then the prostate contractions occur like near the end of that. And when the prostate starts to contract is when you have ejaculatory inevitability, which is like knowledge that the ejaculation is coming. And sometimes it's like can't be delayed.
Like once it's begun, it can't be undone.
Yeah. So if you go back to our edging episode, you'd be playing with that prostate
getting
ejaculation.
right up into that moment.
And then that's like edging is like when it like can't, or like maybe it can. Then stage 2, the second stage, is when the seminal fluid flows through the descended urethral bulb. You essentially have a cum shot, which we all started as.
Famously.
And the perineal musculature propels the semen along the penile urethra, expelled forcibly in spurts from the penile meatus. Isn't that like just like insane sentences that are written that you're just like, damn, meatus? Really? Like you called it meatus? Like that seems like very
MEAT?
yeah, US.
Meatus.
Meatus. Like on the nose of your, like that's on the nose. So yeah, your prostate is involved in ejaculation. So there's, you know, some reason why maybe that's why it feels good. There's also so many nerves around it. And essentially they're like, okay, if you're playing with your prostate up your ass, you're stimulating different nerves that aren't being stimulated if you're just masturbating and not touching your ass.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that like, okay, if you're trying to have a great orgasm, essentially the more things you're playing with, the more pleasure centers, like you're adding to the amount of nerves and neurons that are firing during that ejaculation.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like being able to explore more, even if you have like sensitive spots other places in your body. If you're going to be touching more of your body, you're probably going to have a more intense, or if
you could
you're
have,
more
like,
into it mentally, then you're going to have
7
a
people
bigger...
stimulating all the different parts of your body while you came. It's probably going to feel better than you just jerking your dick.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a bit of the idea.
Yeah, and there are lots of pleasure centers in your ass, by the way. And also I'm going to jump a little bit ahead and say people who are born female also have these pleasure centers,
Yeah.
right? So like while the prostate is people who are born male have prostates. People who are not born male can still get a lot of pleasure from their anus. There's like the neurovascular bundle, which is like inside of you that there's just like a lot of nerves and obviously like ways to feel everything that's going on in there and turn that into pleasure. And so I think it's important to separate it from the prostate, even if the prostate might bring a different angle to this. And maybe for some people that's become something extra sensitive to them that brings them a lot of pleasure. You don't need a prostate to have pleasure and a like enhanced orgasm from anal.
Yeah, there's going to be nerves firing from getting banged in your ass, regardless of prostate or not. So, okay.
Banged or fingered or whatever.
So the 3 theories that I found about the prostate leading to orgasm, one is that there are the nerves that pass along the outer surface of the prostate gland, which when touched feel good. So that's like the obvious one. That's like they touch your prostate. Oh! And then the other one, which is more relating to you, is like the idea that you're like, oh, I haven't really felt it, was like the actual, others talk about rewiring their brain was needed for the appreciation of the effects of the organ stimulation.
Yeah, that
so they
makes
had
sense.
to like there's a
Work their
thing
way
called
up to it.
aneros. Have you ever seen those on like Twitter porn? It's like every OnlyFans guy has like a pink thing up their ass that they like sell for $89.99 and
buzz
they like
them?
buzz them. Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
And they're like, oh, like that is the thing that you.
what is it called?
Well, I didn't. Okay.
What did you call it?
This
Aneros?
was linked from a study, and it was called Aneros. So I don't know if this is the pink thing up everyone's ass in OnlyFans, because it was from a study. But they were saying it's like there's the $69 one up to $139 one, and these are the things you would buy if you want to maybe try and open up this type of feeling for yourself, because you actually are buying these things that then will help your orgasm and help you actually get to the point of being able to experience this orgasm.
Yeah, I think like you could probably do it without those, but that's like a form of self-stimulation that you can probably also play with the amount, how hard it is. It's even reminding me of like running, right? Like it's not a very comfortable thing to do when you first start, but yet people who love running like get high off of it. And so I think if you like, for someone like me to like, you have to slowly work your way up past those barriers. And for somebody who's like pain sensitive, it probably is just going to have to take a lot longer to like get comfortable with that. In the same way with running has taken me a long time to actually enjoy.
Yeah. And I don't have like, I don't feel pain. So yeah, that's why I think it just gets shoved up my ass. No willy-nilly. I just go on runs. Actually, no, I guess I feel
shoving
the pain
things
of
up your
running.
ass on your run.
Yeah,
You're
just running. Like a Neros in my ass on a run, trying to feel something for God's sake in this world. And then the last reason why they think the orgasm could work is just, again, like a heightened experience that comes in specific people, like men or women, who practice their like ass stimulation, and they like figure out the awareness of their own body. This is kind of like the second one, which allows the physiological sensation to occur. But then the one study I found, which is like anecdotal. So like, again, science isn't good at studying male anal sex or gay shit, but they just was like, okay, so Google, like the amount of people Googling this is like, in some of the studies is like so many people are Googling like, why does it feel so good on my ass?
Really?
Like, so they're kind of like, okay, obviously people are feeling this. Like that is valid. Like truly they were like,
yeah, without forcing it upon themselves, they're discovering it. Is that what you mean?
There was searches that say, why does it feel so good to touch my ass?
Yeah.
Then there were other searches that were like, prostate-induced orgasms, like why do they happen? Like they kind of grouped them all together. And in 1 year, there were 383,000 results in America of people searching that. Wow. And then obviously there's these products which have been like, as like selling like hotcakes. And then, yeah, like they're just sort of like, okay, obviously something good is happening. Like this wouldn't be
people wouldn't pick this up if it wasn't.
But there's not an obvious scientific study saying this is exactly why this feels so good.
It's interesting because there might be a part of it. Like I definitely think there's lots of nerves and actual stimulation and feel good stuff down there, but there may be a part of it that, because it's a little taboo, almost makes it a little sexy as well.
Yeah.
Like for some people that might turn them off, because obviously your butt is related to like feces and stuff, and so some people might be really turned off on that. But there's also an element of like, this is not allowed, and maybe that's like kind of sexy, or like it's secretive, I'm not going to tell anyone.
But some of the like anecdotal research says that like guys like shudder and like shake and like have these crazy orgasms that I'm kind of like, that's like not like, that's like physiological.
Oh, totally.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? I'm kind of like, get to the
that
bottom
can
of the
be
shutter and the shape.
mental included, right? Like
Yeah.
where your brain is at. Like obviously your orgasm on any given day depends on like how you're mentally feeling as well.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Like when you
How
masturbate
actually
and like have like
horned
an
up you
orgasm,
are.
that's so like, I need to go to work, and it's like nothing versus like
When you
I'm
actually are
actually like candles on, like wax dripping on. Well, I've never done that, but you know what I mean. Enya's playing.
I was going to say, like, the other research I came across very similar to the female G spot was when they would give people with prostates diagrams and ask them to label things. Like, everyone, even the people who were like,
Oh,
I
God,
have a
yeah.
male G spot, wouldn't necessarily label the same places. They'd be like, this for some people was very close to like the outside of the ass. Some people it was deep in. So everyone kind of had a different view of what was their
prior to
quote-unquote
this. Someone goes,
G-spot.
"Where's the prostate?" I'm like all the way up my colon. Like I'm like it's at the back
of your throat.
It's like you gotta get like you have to have like a big dick to hit it. But it's like that's something else. That's
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah, so it's like everyone had like while the prostate may actually feel good for you, there might actually be other parts of you that you've been thinking are a prostate because they feel good as well. So
It just means you like stuff up your ass.
Yeah.
Which is like so normal.
Yeah.
Again, you're just increasing the amount of sensation during sex. Like essentially if you're like a guy and you're straight and you're not playing with your ass, you're just missing out on neurons.
yeah, and it's like
It's like,
I agree.
go for
and
it.
I think a lot of men this day and age, a lot of straight men this day and age are willing to explore that. And it's obviously takes like being around also a partner who doesn't think that's weird and who won't shame you for it. So there's like many elements.
Oh my
that
God,
come
do you think there's like
together.
so many straight Tinder date couples, fifth date, and it's like they're having the margarita and the guy's like kind of like shaking his legs in nervousness because he just wants to ask her like to eat his ass or touch his butt, and she is like, something's up, and then he's like, I want you to touch my butt, and then like sometimes the girl's like, he's weird and breaks up.
That definitely
Like
happens.
that's so, you know what I mean?
It's
Like the
sad,
stakes
yeah.
are high. Like
Happens both
like,
ways, I'm sure.
Yeah, straight people, like ladies, like if he asks you to eat your butt, like definitely
Like
chill.
you can ask him to wash it, and then
Yeah.
'cause, like apparently
Definitely-
straight guys don't. wash their
Definitely, you're
butts.
gonna need to be going, and you're gonna need to be butt chugging, douching with that guy. You can call it butt chugging, which is the smart way for a straight guy to douche. Oh, just butt chug. But I just feel like there is nerves there. You, as a gay guy, I don't have to like ask someone if they want to do butt stuff. It's like implied. Like there is something that kind of sucks, and I can see how you would just like it would just all be left alone, and it'd be easier to not talk about.
Yeah,
even
there's a
if
lot of
both
hang-ups
wanted
and
it.
layers, but I think if both want, you're right. There's still that element of taboo being afraid to ask somebody else.
And
'cause
same
they
with the
might
girl.
think.
It's like if the girl wants butt stuff too, it's like, yeah, you've really got to communicate that.
But I think more and more straight people are able to break down that barrier once they get to know each other.
And hopefully this podcast is helping. Send this to your straight
Yeah,
cousins.
give it a try. Whether you're straight, queer, whatever. Like,
Okay,
and
but
it may
you-
not be for you. I think that's like important
Yeah,
to talk
so
about.
you don't necessarily love butt stuff.
Well, I honestly
asking
want
like I don't
to
know.
really bad. Like, I wish I was a Nelly Bottom.
Okay, you
But-
should check that Nelly bottom. Is it problematic?
Oh, I
Doesn't
don't-
that sound like so 90s?
They just used to always say it in Queer as Folk.
Exactly. So it's
Okay,
like maybe run for the hills.
Okay, delete that.
Yeah, you always say Nelly bottom. I'm just like, I don't know. We'll look into it.
What does Nelly mean?
Exactly. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't think
no.
it's the mask rapper. So let's just be careful.
I'm gonna look that up immediately after this. But okay,
But you want to.
I've
be,
had it. It's like not that I don't want to try or that I don't. It's just like it takes a lot for me. And there are times I've done it where I have actually not enjoyed it. There are times I've done it where I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But the way other people express and the way some people are exclusive bottoms, I just like I can't relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that might be just hangups in like fear of pain and all these different angles, but that's still a real thing. Like I
I
have
can't-
to feel really comfortable. I only learned recently, and if you're somebody else who has trouble with anal sex,
lube?
yeah, like I'd only ever used, I don't know what you call like regular lube.
You need silicone base.
Yeah, I only realized from like a Reddit thread recently that those lubes actually made me feel like I was burning, but silicone lube doesn't do that. So you might actually have an allergy to the lube that is uncomfortable to you. So there's lots of elements there.
You're
that-
also like hyper aware of your body.
yeah.
You're always like, my pinky toe twinged. Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
just so, yeah. Like I can
Every
imagine
little-
that really affects it.
Totally.
And I'm so like versed that like it is interesting to think about people who are just top, just bottom, I'm always like, huh. Like I have I can't relate to it at all.
Just being one way.
Yeah, but then I'm like, yeah, like someone who's just a bottom is so interesting to me too. In the same way, someone who's just a top is like always. And
me too. And that's why it's not like I don't want to be just a top, but I am trying, and I've tried through the years, and sometimes with success and sometimes without. And that's why I'm like maybe saying it to give myself grace, because I'm not trying to say that I can't or I should stop trying, but that
okay, we need to buy you an Aneros.
Legitimately for me is
you
not
literally need like
an
Aneros.
Yeah. Get me one. Get me one, girl.
You're gonna be like, aren't there like versions of it where it's like literally like a tail, like like pup play? The best part about the gay beach in Toronto is like sometimes truly like we were there with like straight girls recently, and they were like, someone was in a pirate mask, and we were like, no, that was like a dog
furry mask.
Yeah, like it was like, and it's just like a dog mask, naked, like. But I think there's one that you can like shove up your ass, and it looks like you have like a dog tail. Huh. So that's going to be your goal. We'll start with the Aneros, but eventually I want you to have a tail.
I need someone who's gone through my experience, because I feel like sometimes if
so many have.
No, I know, but I feel like when you sometimes ask for advice on bottoming, you might be getting it from somebody who it's like feels amazing for always, right? And they're just mostly talking about, make sure you take it slow, make sure you've either douched or there's lots of lube. Like all those things are true, but I want to hear it from somebody who went from, like I want to be able to be somebody who it was painful at one point, but I overcame it, and now it's really pleasurable. Versus somebody who was just able to.
Are there
get
like
into
sex doctors?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that I would go to?
Someone like goes and like stretches your hole. Oh my God. I mean, yeah, that exists, right? No,
I don't know.
Maybe that doesn't
exists.
exist. Like OHIP, like paid for by the Ontario government. That's something
my
Doug
ass
Ford
doctor.
ain't gonna be funding.
Yeah, true. Until
Olivia
he finds his
Chow,
prostate.
Yeah, queen. But yeah, like no. Okay, maybe it's not that. Okay.
Anyway,
yeah, you're right.
I'll keep experimenting. But if there's anyone listening to the pod that's had my experience and found a way over the rainbow, that'd be great to get advice from.
And if there's anyone who knows how to like make themselves like start to feel more physically, that would be what I need.
You mean like just having sensation generally?
Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I've been bleeding for 3 hours. I didn't even know. Like, what is that? That can't be good. Okay, so yeah. And yeah, just like straight up, it is fun. Like all the studies were like, something's going on here. People are loving it. We don't exactly know why, but yeah,
it's definitely worth exploring.
We're going to talk about benign prostatic hyperplasia.
Oh, whoa!
Which
I thought we were done.
Essentially, we're going to go into this quickly, just because it is like a huge health concern that we need to know about. Which essentially your prostate has like, there's a lot of prostate cancer as we live longer. It's just like a very common type of cancer, and there's a lot of ways in which you could have it and then live a nice long healthy life, but you need to know what the signs are. So the frequent urgent need to pee, peeing more often at night, trouble starting to pee, weak stream, dribbling at the end of urination, not being able to fully empty the bladder, and also like pain when you ejaculate. Are like some signs which could like, and again, this can happen in your 40s, 50s, earlier, like just
but
like,
it's typically much later right? It's typically
it's like
70s.
so common. It's like if you live over 70, it's like you're gonna have this benign prostatic hyperplasia.
Yeah, it could happen like any cancer.
It's a non-cancerous enlargement of the prostate gland, but also it can obviously become cancerous. It's a way more common in Western than Eastern countries. Like it's not that common in Japan and China, but very common in America, which is kind of interesting. And then also men who have sex with men, for whatever reason, have lower rates of screening for it. And they think it has to do with anal sex and the stigma of anal sex, and maybe not even being as aware of like what it feels like up there. Like they were trying to figure out why, but they think it is like when you have this, you have to take medication or do things that are going to make anal sex uncomfortable. But for whatever reason, like men who have sex with men are screening for prostate cancer less than the rest. I know. So they couldn't really, obviously they don't know exactly why.
Yeah,
but
I think it'd be the opposite.
1 to 25% of people who have it will have painful ejaculation. So that's something to like, obviously I feel like that's when you'd know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
You
like,
start to be like something.
I never thought about that. Like if I have pain while coming, I'm going to be like okay.
Time to go to the
doctor.
doctor.
But then I can't feel pain.
Yeah.
If I feel that pain, we're going to the doctor, Greg. But it's just something to think about because we're all like aging men. Maybe not all of us, but we're all aging. We're all going to die. So should we move on from that?
Yeah, that's a great way to end this section of the pod. Do you want to move on to a little break and then we'll come back? Okay, we'll come back with some. What'd you learn this week's?